back. It's been a minute. First time guest. We got A-Rose on. What's going on?
Thank you for having me, Raleigh.
Of course, bro. Thank you for coming on. And guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, like, subscribe, comment. Means a lot. But yeah, we're going to get into the NFL. We're going to eventually touch on NBA, which we have not talked about on this podcast in, I don't know, probably 6 months. But yeah, so, I mean, let's just get right into it, bro.
Let's do it.
That's one of the things some of my favorite podcasts, honestly, they're like kind of like always bullshitting in the beginning. Yeah. I can never get to it.
You just want to get right to it,
yeah. Yeah, bro. So I think we're going to start off, the Ravens just played the Bengals, beat them in one of the best games, I think, of the season.
Oh, yeah, that game was amazing.
Yeah, just a shootout. I mean, defense is just non-existent when those two teams play. Jamar Chase has pretty much a historic night. He goes for, I think, 55 fantasy points.
Yeah, I believe it. I saw it was like the eighth highest scoring fantasy performance of all time. He was starting a thread, and I think Jerry Rice technically has the all-time record with like 65 PPR points, and Jamar finished with like 55. So that was his third career 50-plus fantasy point game. So pretty wild stuff from Jamar.
Yeah, I saw a tweet. It was like comparing like him and Jetta's to like their best fantasy games, and it was like Jamar had like the top 4 games. Like he's one of those guys, and we could talk a little fantasy with that. It's like he's one of those guys who will just go off for 10, 11, 12 receptions, over 200 yards and a few touchdowns, but at the same time, like he's that guy that can disappear and get 3 catches for fucking 25 yards. So with him, it's rough, but his other best game of the season, where I think he had 40 fantasy points, was against the Ravens. And to me, that's the main takeaway from this football game is like, I think the Ravens, as far as a team, are a top 3 team in football. And I think the only thing holding them back from being far and away the best team is their defense is just atrocious.
No, it's taken a drop from last year. If I remember last year, they were one of the top defenses, and that was a huge reason why they won so many games.
Yeah.
This year, they're kind of relying on their offense to put up 30-plus points a week to win. And granted, right now they are. But when it comes playoff time, the weather gets a little colder, and you're playing, better teams in the playoffs that have better defenses, like Kansas City. That could be a big problem for them if they're not putting up those high point totals. Lamar can make some magic, but will that magic run out, when they face some real defenses? The Cincinnati defense is certainly the furthest thing from a real defense right now. They've been letting up points all year, and that's been their Achilles heel.
Yeah, I mean, and that's like one of the things, the Ravens have kind of always had an amazing defense. Ever since at least I can remember, I'm 29. For most of my life as a football fan, they've had one of the best defenses in football. Sure. And even last year, they had a great defense. And I know that, they lost a few pieces, but the expectation with just that team and the coaching staff they have and some of the main guys they have there is always to be a top defense. But, I mean, dude, they just cannot stop anything. They can't stop a nosebleed. I'm looking on Twitter right now. I'm trying to find like some defensive stat. Oh, here we go. So this tweet is, it says, the most uneven teams in the NFL by offensive to defensive rankings. So the Ravens are the second-ranked offense in the NFL, and they're the 24th-ranked defense in the NFL.
Yeah,
so it's a 22 ranking difference between the two.
Yeah, no, I mean, see, that's a problem. I mean, like, I'm sure everyone in that locker room, to John Harbaugh knows that, and, they got time to make those adjustments, but if they really want to take it to that next level this year, and obviously the chip that's still on Lamar's shoulder is the fact that he hasn't gotten to the Super Bowl yet. And, like I said, guys like, Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, they're going to be in his way. So, like, they're going to have to figure that out. Obviously, the offense is clicking. Derrick Henry's looks like the rushing champ once again. Lamar's got one of the highest passer ratings, I think, in the history of the NFL right now. He looks great, on his way to maybe his 3rd MVP. But it's not going to matter if the defense, doesn't show up.
Exactly, and that's the thing. It's like, and I'm looking at Twitter still, and I'm seeing, according to PFF, like going into this season, they had the Ravens as the 4th-ranked secondary in football, and that's been their biggest problem. Their rushing defense is not that bad. It's not great by any means, but at the same time, like they have one of the worst passing defense is in football, and you think, you got Kyle Hamilton there, who he's been kind of banged up this year. But, you'd think with some of the guys they have and the names they have that they'd be, a respectable defense. But honestly, I just don't see a world in which in the playoffs they stop Patrick Mahomes with this defense.
No, and I mean, and you saw it firsthand this past week. Jamar Chase obviously putting up a historic game, and he did that without T. Higgins. You would think Higgins not being out there, they'd be able to, at least lock into, stopping Jamar even more. But somehow, some way, whether that's the Bengals just scheming up better routes for him or the Ravens just not coming prepared, they just could not stop him. And, it's an obvious problem. And despite the fact that, the Chiefs obviously have had some wide receiver injuries this year, Rashee Rice going down, Hollywood Brown going down, they brought in D-Hop. They still got, Juju Smith. They got some guys. Who's the rookie, the fast rookie?
Worthy?
Xavier Worthy.
And they got old reliable Travis Kelce.
Exactly, Mr. Old Reliable Travis Kelce. So it's like they got guys. They're going to get Pacheco back. That offense is only going to get better. So the Ravens better tighten it up on defense because in all likelihood they're probably on a collision course with Kansas City if we're being realistic. So yeah, we'll see how it plays out. But they got time to figure it out.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the only other real threat in the AFC is the Bills. Yeah. And honestly, it's not that I don't trust Josh Allen. I don't trust the weapons they have on that team because I like the tandem of James Cook and Ray Davis. Like I like Ray Davis a lot. And, they did bring in Amari Cooper, but outside of that, there's just Keon Coleman. He has these great moments, but, he's still a rookie. And just the whole team, and what we've seen from them is, we know the Chiefs' defense is going to come up big in the playoffs. They do it every year. Even when Pat's not having, an amazing game, the defense kind of helps him, and they pull it out. That's what the Chiefs do. They win games that they shouldn't win.
No, for sure, yeah. I mean, quick thing on, Buffalo is obviously, like you said, I would have to agree right now. They look like probably the next biggest threat besides Baltimore to, Kansas City.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's not a Josh Allen thing. Josh Allen is a Swiss Army knife. He can run the ball. He can throw the ball, obviously, but he doesn't really have that elite wide receiver right now. Yes, Amari Cooper has had his moments. It's hard to say, how he's going to be in that offense because he is the only guy. There's not many guys taking attention away from him. So is Amari, who's obviously he's a little banged up right now, is he going to be enough for Josh Allen to overpower an offense like Kansas City, who has elite offensive weapons when healthy?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know either. And we can segue into Lamar potentially winning his third MVP this year because right now I think it's his award to lose. I don't see anyone else in the league who's been as consistent as Lamar. And I know there's the voter fatigue and stuff like that, and you see the Lions look really good, but they're not going to give it to Jared Goff.
No.
Sam Darnold's not going to get it with the Vikings, and they've fallen off. Jaden Daniels, I mean, the Commanders are, I think, 6-2?
I would say, yeah, I believe 6-2. Jaden Daniels, if he keeps this up for the rest of the season and the Commanders end up, a top 2 or 3 seed in that conference, he'll definitely be in the discussion. I do think just because he's a rookie and, assuming Lamar also keeps up, what he's doing, actually, 2 different conferences. So,
yeah.
They're both in the discussion, but,
Wait, am I bugging? I thought the MVP is both. Right?
Is it just no? I think it's just one MVP.
There's one MVP.
One MVP, yeah. So it's not one for each conference.
No.
Yeah, no. So anyway, so Daniels obviously having an electric rookie season. Most exciting quarterback that the Commanders have had since RG3, pretty much. So if he keeps this up the rest of the season, there's definitely a chance he could win the MVP. But the way Lamar's playing and the fact that Daniels is a rookie, there may be some bias to not vote for him and give him the MVP as a rookie. Whether that's fair or not, that's up for debate. But, we can't discredit and ignore what Lamar is doing. It's, he's doing some historic things himself. And just that offense is just clicking on all cylinders. And it all starts with the fact that Lamar is just, one of the most elite playmakers, the NFL's ever seen. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and him and Henry together, I mean, it's just a dynamic duo.
It's unbelievable, yeah.
2 guys who, at the peak of their powers, they're pretty much unstoppable.
Yeah.
And also, that's just the run. They just can run all over you. And then they can even, Justice Hill's a great pass catching back. They haven't used him as much recently, but I like him. But yeah, I would say, I think outside of Lamar, the only dark horse is Jaden Daniels to win the MVP. The Commanders are 7-2, and they look great. He's looked incredible. But outside of that, if you look at the Bills, they're playing well, but Josh Allen's had some up and down games. He had a game where I think he was like 7 for 30 or something that, 9 for 30 passing. And then you look at the other teams. It's like Jared Goff's not going to get it. Patrick Mahomes has not really been amazing this year. No, he's not going to get the award.
Yeah, the team just finds ways to win. Like Mahomes, look, at the end of the day, going to the playoffs, is there a quarterback I'd rather have than Mahomes right now? Probably not, because of what we've seen, the last, few years, especially the last few years of his career, but really the entirety of his career. This guy has been money in the clutch. So it's hard to say there's a quarterback I'd rather have over him right now going into the postseason. But if we're talking about how guys are playing, what are we in week 9 now?
Yeah.
So through these first 9 weeks, you got to give it to guys like Lamar and Jaden Daniels. They've outplayed him, even Josh Allen. So
yeah, I would say it's probably Lamar, Jaden Daniels, Josh Allen. Those are the top 3.
And I'd have to agree.
Things can change. The Falcons could go on a crazy run, and Kirk Cousins could throw for 400 yards in 5 straight games. Anything can happen. But right now, I think those 3 comfortably are the best. You want to move on to top 5 teams?
Yeah,
power ranking.
Let's do it.
So usually I'll go first, I guess. I'll show you kind of what I do. I usually go 5 to 1.
Okay.
So I'll be like, powering the top 5 teams in the NFL right now. At 5, I got the Commanders. 4, I got the Bills. 3, I have the Ravens. 2, the Lions. 1, the Chiefs. And my 2 honorable mentions are the Packers and the Vikings. I don't think, like we were talking about, Mahomes has been incredible this year, but the Chiefs are undefeated, and they have him, who is, like you said, got to give him the credit. He's the best quarterback in the NFL until proven otherwise. That defense looks amazing with Chris Jones. They've got new weapons. Travis Kelce off to a slow start, but he's still Travis Kelce. He's going to make the plays when it matters most. It's hard to, it's disrespectful, I think. If they're undefeated, it's disrespectful to not give them that one. And 2, before you go, the Lions, I think they're just clear-cut the second best team. I think their defense is solid. Their running game is incredible. And their offense is just a well-oiled machine. They're basically like the Ravens, except their defense is better.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, I love that list. And I agree. I see some of your honorable mentions are the Packers and the Vikings. Before the season started, my sort of dark horse candidate to come out of the NFC actually was Green Bay, just because I do think Jordan Love is pretty legit. I think they do have a lot of weapons on offense. They run the ball well. They're a cold weather team. They're prepared for, pretty much any climate, especially in these playoff games. No one wants to come into Lambeau and try to win a game in, negative degrees, so the Packers are ready for that. They got playmakers like Jaden Reed, Dobbs,
they've got
Watson.
Depth. They don't have these star receivers, but they all have a lot of really good receivers. They got
just good skill players that can get it done. I like their, LaFleur, good coach over the years. They play good hard-nosed football. So, I think Green Bay is definitely a sleeper, but back to your top 5, I mean, it's hard to argue with that right now. I mean, you can maybe flip-flop, the order a little bit, but the Chiefs definitely number 1 for me. I mean, they got a perfect record. They, in theory, have the best quarterback. You can't really argue much about that. They always show up, and they just find ways to win. It almost feels like I'm watching the Patriots dynasty over again. They just, even in games where Brady didn't play well, they just still find ways to win because of coaching, because of defense, whatever it may be. They're a great team. And then, the other 4 spots, the Lions offense looks electric. The Ravens offense looks electric. The Bills and Commanders, maybe you could flip-flop those 2. Yeah. But I think those top 3 is pretty solid. Chiefs, Lions, Ravens, that's a very solid top 3. And then, Bills and Commanders, I'd have to agree as well. I mean, I think that's a very good top 5.
Yeah. And before you give your top 5 right now, breaking news on the pod.
I saw that.
You heard it here first. Dak Prescott, season-ending injury per Adam Schefter. I guess that means Cooper Rush is playing QB for them this year.
Cooper Rush, QB1, fire him up.
I think he's a good backup, but I mean, I don't really think it matters that much. I think their season was not, they weren't going anywhere this year anyway.
Yeah, they didn't have the juice this year. I mean, Dak is he is what he is. I wouldn't call him elite. Can he have some elite performances every now and then? Sure, but so can guys like Kirk Cousins and a few others in that tier. But he's not elite. And they have some elite players on that team. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb, great player. They got some elite players on defense, Micah Parsons. But at the end of the day, if the quarterback's not even available, he's had some injuries over the years, and this is just another one. I guess shutting him down for the year was probably the right move, considering how much they just paid him. You don't want to take any chances. But yeah, I mean, this season was, you could just see the writing on the wall with this season with Dallas.
I mean, that's bad news for CeeDee Lamb owners and fantasy.
That is rough.
CeeDee Lamb and the people who are holding on to hope for Jake Ferguson at tight end. But
another wide receiver 1 finish for CeeDee's not looking good this year. So
who knows?
Cooper Rush is not bad.
He's not bad.
Look, CeeDee Lamb is an elite talent, so as long as Rush can get him the ball, you got to trust CeeDee to still be able to make plays. But that volume that Dak was able to get CeeDee the ball is, you got to question if it's still going to be there.
Yeah. We got 4 minutes until I can switch it. So if you want to run through your teams, we'll talk about it quick.
For what topic?
Your top 5 teams.
Oh, I mean,
are you the same ones?
I mean, like, what other teams? Like, are there really in there? Like,
I don't know. We can.
No, I mean,
you want to do?
I mean, like I said, I like the Packers, but I can't necessarily say they're top 5 teams here, but I think come playoff time, like, they're gonna.
I think that the only reason I had them out of the top 5 is because Jordan Love's like kind of injured all the time. So
I think going into the playoffs, though, they're healthy. I think they're gonna be nasty.
Yeah. All right.
I mean, like, if I'm being honest.
So let's talk Jets. I mean, for the most part, I would say outside, it's between them and the Dolphins for the most disappointing teams in football. Unless you want to throw in the Cowboys, now their season's officially over.
Yeah, I mean,
it doesn't get much worse than what the Jets have been this year.
It's got to be the Jets as of right now. I mean, look, there technically is time to turn this thing around, but there's not much margin for error at this point. But yeah, the Jets. If you thought there was hype last year, there was probably even more hype this year because you knew Rodgers was going to be healthy. This is the first real year with him. Some of their young studs are only getting better. And of course, even before the season started, everyone kind of knew that a Devontae Adams and Aaron Rodgers pairing in New York was inevitable. It was going to happen. It was just a matter of when and what they would have to give up to get him. So now that they have Adams and they got all these weapons on offense, they made a coaching change. They're trying to, fix some of the issues that this team has had over the beginning portion of the season. It still doesn't look like a well-oiled machine right now. What, they've won 2 in a row right now?
No, one.
Just one? You sure?
Yes.
Did they beat? They lost. You're right. They lost to New England. Heartbreaker. Yeah,
absolutely as brutal as it
look
gets.
at the remaining schedule. I mean, they got Arizona this week. They got Indianapolis. Then they got their bye. Then the rest of the season is the Seahawks, the Dolphins, Jacksonville, the Rams, Buffalo, Miami. Of all those games, if you're just going to look at like the strength of the team they're facing, the only team where you could say like, yeah, they're probably not going to win that game is at Buffalo, But if they're serious about being a playoff threat, it's probably a game they really should win. But the way they've been playing, it's hard to say they will win that game. But they want to make the playoffs.
They pretty much need to win out.
They pretty much need to win out. They can probably afford to lose one more game, but like, listen, they have the talent to do it.
They do. The thing is that's frustrating. And I don't mean to interrupt, but the thing is that's frustrating about the Jets is if they could kick and just not make the most basic like mistakes, like just mind-numbing mistakes. Like they're 6-3, or are they 6? They're 3-6 right now, right?
Yeah,
they're 6-3. Like they could easily have like one. The only game that they really 100% got outplayed and should have lost was Week 1 in San Francisco.
Yeah,
that's the only game. And here they are 3-6, and it looks like the whole season's over. But I don't know. They looked really good last week. They played a beat down Texans team, but the offense looked good. And I mean, Garrett Wilson, who I want to talk about more, is. He got off to a pretty rough start with Aaron Rodgers.
He did.
But last week he went off. But this is his season right now, and I want to admit I was wrong. I was saying he sucks because he has some of the most untimely like errors and drops and fumbles and all these things. But Garrett Wilson this season, after a shaky start, he's first in the NFL with 60 receptions. He's got 663 receiving yards, which is third in the NFL. He's got 35 receiving first downs, which is first in the NFL. And he's got 5 touchdowns, which is tied for 7th in the NFL. 5 receiving touchdowns. He's putting together a pretty ridiculous season after a really bad start, honestly.
He is. Yeah, no, I mean, he's a special talent. I mean, just even most recently, that absolutely ridiculous touchdown catch he had in the back of the end zone just a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think it was like
Was it last week?
It was last Thursday.
It was last Thursday?
Yeah. Just feels a little bit longer.
It does, yeah. I mean, every week in Jets fandom is, it feels like an eternity of just insanity. But no, Garrett Wilson he's the truth. Like he's really good. There were definitely questions at the start of the year. Is he a true wide receiver one, or maybe we need to pump the brakes on him and just accept the fact that maybe he isn't like that top dog receiver? But the way he's playing right now, he looks like he'd be the best receiver on most teams in the NFL.
Yeah, talent-wise, I think he's one of the best. He's probably a top 10, definitely a top 10 receiver talent-wise in the league.
I would say so.
And I think, honestly, pairing Devontae with him only makes him better because you can't put all your focus on Garrett Wilson.
100%.
You have to worry about Devontae. You have to worry about, honestly, Tyler Conklin, who's a great pass catcher. You have to worry about Brees, who another great pass catcher. Like, they have so much talent around them, which is why, like, I don't want to be hopeful. Like, the Jets have caused me nothing but pain for the past 10 years at least. But it's possible. Like, they do not play the Ravens. They're not playing one of these. They don't play the Lions. They're not playing one of these teams that they just can't beat. They can beat every single one of these teams.
It's really just Buffalo.
Possible.
It's just Buffalo.
Can they beat Buffalo? Yeah. Which they can, because they could have beat them the first time.
They played them tough. I mean, like you said, if Greg Zuerlein, just can made some kicks, didn't miss some extra points, here and there, like, it definitely flips the script on some of these losses turns to wins. So they're right there in terms of like being a better team.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say they're that close to being like a great team yet. I think there's more internal issues that need to be fixed, like the coaching staff, brutal. Maybe some front office changes, but like overall, like you could see like the motivation to win is there. Like they're making moves. They're doing things to try to improve the team. They're not just delusional about the fact that like they're not winning football games. They want to make this thing work with Rodgers. Yeah. They kind of have to. So I think as long as they keep that mentality going, but they address some of the obvious issues with the coaching staff, then I think maybe they'll be in better shape next year. It's it always sucks to just say like on to next year. But
that's their best bet right now. Yeah. Get a real coaching staff in here
and just
tighten up the offensive line. They made great improvements to the offensive line, but it's still not good enough, to be honest. Like their line was that bad. And their defense is like up and down. I think they got rid of Saleh too quickly. And I was not a fan of Saleh, but I don't think what they did made things any better. The defense has been significantly worse since he left.
Well, that was the thing, going into the season that like, actually going back to last year, you looked at the Jets and you're like, wow, like, yeah, Zach Wilson, the offense, there's really nothing there, but that defense, man, like can perform like the best defense in the NFL on any given week, and that's what you saw last year. I mean, the defense was great, and it kept the Jets in quite a few games last year, and then you're thinking, oh, as long as we have Aaron Rodgers, we'll be fine. We're going to score more points, and here we are, like they're not necessarily scoring more points, and the defense is not performing like it did last year. So that's the spot they're in, and they got a lot to figure out. But they got the personnel to do it. So
they do.
Yeah.
You want to do Would You Rather Garrett Wilson?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. So would you rather Garrett Wilson I can't speak.
We're running it back.
We're running it back. Take two. Would you take three? So would you rather Garrett Wilson edition? First up, Garrett Wilson or DK Metcalf?
Ooh, Metcalf. Okay. So in general, I'm usually a fan of like the big receivers, the guys who like they're not necessarily always cutting back and forth, risking ankle injuries and stuff. Like they're just the jump ball guys, but especially for fantasy, just because of the big play, ability. But I'm gonna go Garrett.
I would go Garrett as well. I think it's close, but I think Garrett has more upside, to be honest. Next up, Garrett Wilson or Puka Nacua?
Puka.
It hurts because Puka has not played that much this year.
Yeah. Puka's rookie season was obviously historic. I'm pretty sure he had the most receiving yards of all time.
I think it was like 1450 something.
Historic rookie season. Him and Stafford, the connection was amazing. If he didn't get hurt to start the year and picked up right where he left off and just continued that crazy run, I think people not only would say he's better than Garrett Wilson right now, but they might be looking at this guy like, is he potentially a top 5 receiver in the NFL? I mean, like the start he had was pretty incredible. I mean, he won so many people fantasy championships last year just because of that. So yeah, I'll go Garrett for now, but Puka's definitely got respect for Puka.
Another one. I would go Garrett Wilson, but it's so close, and honestly, a lot of that is just recency bias because Puka's been hurt. Next up, Garrett Wilson or Drake London. Drake's had a great year.
Drake's had a great year. Anyone who knows me, especially in my league, all my friends, they know I'm not a Drake London guy, and it's more just out of just pettiness. I've said it that he's a guy who like can let you down in big moments, like especially in fantasy. Like part of that maybe is he hasn't had a real quarterback. He's got Kirk Cousins now, so he's definitely putting up better numbers. But something about the Falcons, man. I just can't trust them. I feel like they misuse Bijan. I feel like they've misused Kyle Pitts. And I just feel like, I don't know, one way or another, Drake London, at least for fantasy, I feel like he's going to let you down in a big moment, and there are guys who I'd rather have over him. I'm going to go Garrett here.
I would go Garrett as well. Drake's had a good year, but the consistency hasn't been there. It's obviously because Desmond Ridder was his QB, but
sure,
he's got a little bit more. He's got to prove himself a little bit more. Yeah. Next up, Garrett Wilson or Amon-Ra St. Brown. This one's easy to me. Yeah, it's Amon-Ra still. Yeah, he's that guy.
Yeah, I'll go St. Brown. I'm not going to put Garrett Wilson there yet because the Garrett Wilson to me, like I said, is, I think he could be a wide receiver one and he could develop into that, but I'm still not going to put him in that tier 1 class yet. And St. Brown has done it for a few years now and proved why he belongs in that tier 1 class. So I'm going to go St. Brown.
Yeah, and his volume's been way down this year, but I think he's had a touchdown like 6 or 7 straight games. Yeah,
he still finds the end zone.
Yeah, so. he's still one of the best in the league. Next up, teammates, Garrett Wilson or Devontae Adams?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I got to go Devontae here. Devontae's been my favorite receiver in the NFL the last, however many years. I've tried to draft him in fantasy as often as I can. I mean, I've always been a big fan of Devontae, so I think his versatility, like he can run. He's arguably the best route runner in the NFL still. Got great hands, can get up for a jump ball. So Devontae can do it all. He's never really had a problem with drops like Garrett Wilson has sort of had, throughout his first 2 years now. Yeah. I got to go Devontae.
Yeah, I would lean Devontae also. I think by the end of the year, like if Garrett can continue this up and be like top 5 in a bunch of categories and the Jets have a great end to the season, I think he can be regarded as a better receiver right now. But right now, I got to go Devontae. Next up, Garrett Wilson or Terry McLaurin?
I'm going to go Garrett Wilson here. Like, I think Terry, from a consistency standpoint, obviously he's played a lot longer than Garrett Wilson. Terry McLaurin has shown that, he can put up numbers with like different quarterbacks. He's had quite a few, with the Commanders over the years. And he's always been a consistently, talented receiver. Garrett Wilson, I feel, just has that extra spark, that extra juice that, he can put up these huge performances that McLaurin just, to me, like hasn't done as consistently.
Yeah.
Garrett Wilson seems to be evolving into like that next level receiver, and Terry's just been the same guy, I feel like, the last 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, this is to me Terry's best season, and I'm still going to give the edge to Garrett, but you can see now Terry has a quarterback who's actually decent. He hasn't had one since Kirk. He was there for the last few Kirk years, right?
He was, yeah.
But recently he's had Taylor Heineke, and I don't know who else has even been playing quarterback. What they have last year? Sam Howell.
Sam Howell, yeah.
Yeah, like he's been screwed by the. He's in the same boat that Garrett Wilson was in. But right now I'll go Garrett, but Terry's great. And last up, Garrett Wilson or Nico Collins.
This is an interesting one.
I'm going Nico Collins right now.
I was going to say I'm a big Nico Collins guy. They're two different receivers. Nico Collins, to me, he's more in that like DK Metcalf, Mike Evans kind of receiver where like he's a big guy, more of a jump ball guy, but he also has that crazy speed. He's kind of like that hybrid receiver, whereas Garrett Wilson is more that finesse kind of guy, like a Devontae Smith, someone who can cut, or Jay Jettas, can cut really hard, run really sharp, crisp routes. Nico Collins is just that guy, like just chuck it down the field and Nico's going to go up and get it. I mean, he's a dog. I mean, I got to go Nico Collins on this one.
Yeah, he's one of the best receivers in football. And the only reason, like, it's not, some people maybe would have a little bit of hesitancy is because he's been hurt. But, dude, he was the number 1 receiver in fantasy when he went out. He's the guy the Texans have been missing. And when he gets back, they're going to be back in they're just going to be a much better
team.
I
mean, the start to the season that Nico was having, I mean, I think through the first 3 or 4 weeks, he was, through the first 3 or 4 weeks of the season, he was, putting up a crazy amount of yards. I think he was leading the NFL in yards and receptions, I think, too, even. I mean, like, he had some huge games to start the year, and I think, like you said, when he gets back healthy, I mean, that's probably when the Texans make that leap to, maybe cracking that top 5 teams in the NFL kind of spot. Especially with Diggs out. I mean, now it's back to the Nico Collins and Tank Dell show. So, I mean, Stroud will have, a lot of fun once he's back in the lineup.
Yeah. All right, so we got 2 more things. We got like 5 minutes still to switch the camera. So, do you want to talk Dolphins? Because at this point, I think the Dolphins should just blow it up. I think they should trade. Wait, did the trade deadline happen? It might have happened.
Did it pass? There might still be time.
It was November 5th. Nothing even happened.
I mean, Devontae.
Yeah. Then there's not really that much to talk about, but
they can't really move.
No, they can't do anything. But the Dolphins right now, they're in a bad spot. I mean, Tua, their franchise quarterback, we do not know if he's going to be playing football in the next 3 years. As much as he seems to not really be fazed by any of this, he's not even wearing the Guardian cap. He's just like, I'm here, I'm good, I'm ready to go. There's just too much inconsistency for them at the quarterback position right now because he's been missing so much time consistently, and you have a guy like Tyreek Hill, you have Jalen Waddle, you have A-Chain, you have Mostert, and they're great players. But if the quarterback's not healthy, they've proven at least Mike McDaniel cannot figure out how to run a successful offense, and they can't win football games. So it's going to come down to, do they believe in Tua, and do they want to continue to have faith that he'll be able to stay on the field, or do they want to kind of just rebuild and go in another direction?
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely in a tough spot because, like you said, they have all these elite, talented players on offense. I really do wonder if, a different quarterback just takes that team to the next level. I mean, do I think Tua's the worst quarterback in the NFL? No, I think he's far from it. But do I think he's the best? I also think he's far from that. He is.
The thing is, who's the quarterback that could bring him there? Because who's available? Obviously, there's been more quarterbacks available through trade and free agency than there really has ever. But who's the guy on that caliber that they're going to be able to bring in?
I mean,
Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I just wonder, a guy, maybe obviously it wouldn't be, a long-term fix, but for a temporary fix, look at what Joe Flacco did in.
That's true.
In Cleveland last year, and honestly, some of the games he's even played for Indianapolis this year, when Richardson has been out.
Yeah.
Flacco can still get it done, or a guy like a Matthew Stafford. I wonder if a quarterback like that, who's on the back half of their career, can still throw the ball well. I wonder if a guy like that, who's more of a pocket passer and can really get the ball down the field better than Tua, I wonder if that's what helps him make that leap.
Yeah, I mean, Matthew Stafford is a good one, because if Matthew Stafford was on the Dolphins, I think they'd be. Tyreek Hill would just have a 2,000-yard season. It wouldn't be up for debate.
Matthew Stafford has been responsible for, I'm pretty sure, the 2 highest receiving seasons of all time.
Cooper Kupp and Megatron.
Right? Yeah. And then also, the topic we talked about earlier on Nakua. I mean, he led Nakua to having the best rookie receiving season of all time.
He's a guy who's just, if you're one of his guys, you're gonna eat. That's the way Matt Stafford runs things, bro.
Facts.
If he is your quarterback and you're in a contract year and he likes you, you're in good shape.
Yeah, you're gonna get your share.
But yeah, I mean, he's a guy. There were talks of potentially trading him. Or trading Cooper Kupp, but now that they're with him and Nakua healthy, that team is scary.
They're back. They're back.
Kyron, Stafford, Puka, and Kupp, those 4 alone, bro. That offense is going to be able to put up 30+ points per game. Their defense isn't amazing, but it's also not terrible.
No, it's a solid defense.
You trust Matt Stafford in big moments, so it's honestly, that's kind of one of my sleeper teams that I think can make a real run. They pulled off the win last week. But dude, they're just a good team. They have veterans who have been there, and Sean McVay is one of the best coaches in the NFL. So for me, that is a team. I genuinely believe that if they can stay on the field, I think the Rams have a chance to actually make the playoffs and make a run in the playoffs.
I agree. Definitely slept on.
All right, so we're gonna do blind ranking 5 NFL quarterbacks. All right,
hit me.
So first up, I got Jalen Hurts. So there's going to be 5 quarterbacks, by the way.
Yeah.
So
All right, Jalen Hurts.
Jalen Hurts is the first quarterback up.
I'm going to put Jalen at number 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Next
4.
up, Jaden Daniels.
Daniels, wow. So it's like it feels unfair to put him ahead of Jalen Hurts, even though he's a rookie, and Jalen Hurts technically has accomplished more in the NFL than him.
Yep.
You know, made it to a Super Bowl. But man, I think I got to put Daniels at 3 right now. I mean, the guy is just balling. So.
All right. Next up, Brock Purdy.
Brock Purdy. I'm gonna put Purdy at 5. Yeah, I mean, like,
all right.
Listen, I'm not even.
That was a good choice.
I'm not even a Brock Purdy hater, but listen, that offense is stacked. Kyle Shanahan is an offensive genius. So Purdy, he's got to just game manage, and every now and then, yes, he does make some. He makes some good throws, but I'm gonna put him at 5.
Yeah. Next up, Joe Burrow.
Joey B. I'm gonna put Burrow at 1. I'm gonna put him at 1 because I really think, pure quarterback talent, I think at the end of the day, there's probably not more than 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the NFL that you would say are better than Burrow. And obviously, I don't know who this last guy is. But I'm going to put Burrow at 1. I feel pretty good about that overall.
All right. Yeah. Last up is Lamar Jackson. And I thought that I screwed it up because you heard me say Lamar and I was making the list. You knew, didn't you?
I did know. I was playing it off like I didn't know. Yeah. That's why. Yeah, no.
I was like, right when you hit it, I was like, oh, he knows Lamar. And then you went with the one, and I was like, he either forgot or he's playing it
I'm playing into it. Damn, Lamar. Okay. So, yeah, I got Burrow at 1. But listen, Lamar, he's probably having the best year. Let me rephrase it. He's definitely having the best year of any quarterback right now. I would give him the MVP if the season ended today. But Joe Burrow, I mean, like, yes, he can't run like Lamar, but the guy can throw the damn football. I mean, he's great. Joe Burrow's been to a Super Bowl. Lamar hasn't.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow, puts up numbers. He feeds his receivers. And it's not like he's not mobile. He's just such a good pocket passer. It's like, there's no point of him putting his body on the line out there. Lamar's just so elusive that he's able to get away with it.
Yeah.
But, I feel good about this list. Let's put Lamar at 2. And, yeah, I like that list.
All right. And that wraps up our NFL talk. That was good. What did we go for? We went for like 40 minutes? Yeah. Damn. Pretty long time. So NBA, I mean, we have not talked NBA on this podcast at all this year, but let's just get right into it, I guess. I think the first thing we could talk about, I mean, you were at the Knicks game last night. They beat the crap out of the Bucks. What is going on with the Bucks, bro? Because it looks like the Giannis Dame experiment is over in Milwaukee. And obviously we are what? Let me see. We are 9 games into the season.
Yeah.
They're 2-7. Only team worse than them right now is the Sixers, which is just wild. But yeah, they look bad.
No, it's crazy. I mean, yeah, like you said, I was there last night. Garden was rocking. Knicks looked pretty good. Probably their best game of the year, honestly.
Yeah.
I mean, like, the Bucks aren't necessarily like a terrible team, like talent-wise, but like there's issues there. Like, is Doc Rivers the problem? Doc Rivers has had a lot of question marks, with all the teams he's coached over the years. He's got that one championship with Boston in 2008.
He's clinging on to that, bro. It's 2024, almost 2025.
And it's there's not much else to show, other than that. So other than just like failures in the playoffs. So yeah, it's crazy to say that. Could the Giannis and Dame era be over just 2 years in? I mean, I don't think that's an unfair statement to make. I mean, like, Dame is a guy who, yes, he's an incredible offensive talent, one of the best offensive, point guards, of this era, but he doesn't play much defense. He's undersized, and he's not necessarily the offensive player he was when he was in his prime in Portland. He's definitely he's starting to get on the back half of his career. So, if the Milwaukee wants to run it through this year and maybe give it one more year, with this duo and see if they can make it work. But, long term, this is not going to last in Milwaukee. So they got a decision to make. Do they pivot now, or do they just ride it out and just hope to make it work? That's the tough position they're in right now.
Yeah, and the thing is, you're starting to see a lot of Giannis trade rumors, and obviously, no matter where the player is, like, you always see trade rumors, right? You saw them for Donovan Mitchell, you saw them for Anthony Davis when he was going to get traded. All the big trades, you kind of see it. And eventually they kind of all come to fruition.
Yeah.
And I remember years ago, Giannis said he wanted to be loyal. He wanted to stay with one team for his entire career. It looks like the writing's on the wall, and he is going to ask out because look, they're 2-7. The Knicks are in third place in the East, and they're 4-4. This season is not over, but it's not like they're losing close games. That they're right in there and they're playing well, and they're just kind of having a little bit of bad luck. They're not having, Gary Trent's been out. Chris Middleton cannot stay on the court, but at this point, that is just who Chris Middleton is. You can't trust him. Dame, you cannot really trust that much either. And then Giannis, he had his injury history with the last 2 playoffs. I believe he was hurt. But the writing's on the wall. I don't see them making it through this year. I don't see Doc Rivers making it as the coach for more than the next 2 or 3 months, and which is crazy because they were 30-13 when they fired Adrian Griffin?
Yes.
They fired him, and they brought in Doc for no reason.
They were a great team. And I mean, honestly, I don't know, was that all Giannis, just sort of using his power in the franchise to make that call, to move on from, Adrian Griffin? Because was it Adrian Griffin? I just want to make sure. Double check before we can go more into this. And I'll pick it up.
Yeah, it was Adrian Griffin.
Okay. So yeah, with Adrian Griffin, I mean, was that Giannis, just abusing his power in the organization to just say we want a new head coach? I mean, there really wasn't too much of a reason, at least externally from a fan perspective, why they should have made that coaching switch when they had such a great start to the season last year. But look, they made that decision and it hasn't really worked out in their favor at all. So they got some issues to address. And, back to your point of, is Giannis, the trade rumors and all that. If we know one thing about the NBA is once a trade rumor gets leaked, whether it came from a quote, that's something a player said himself or, from a coach, from, another inside source, there's usually some truth to it. It usually just doesn't happen. And, the NBA is by far the most mobile league in the 4 major sports, here, so once trade rumors start, swirling, something's coming, if it actually happens, tough to say, but there's going to be some serious talk about it. It's not something that's just going to get brushed, under the rug and not talked about again.
No, yeah, I'm pretty sure if I'm right, I believe when Doc Rivers took over as the coach, I think they ended the season 20-27 after they were 30-13 when he got hired. And now they're 2-7. They had, obviously, Giannis was hurt, didn't play in the playoffs, so they were first round exit. You don't want to put that on Doc. But it's looked bad for him. They're just they went all in on 2 guys and they haven't been able to field the when you do that, you have to find good cheap players, and they just haven't been able to do it. They have Taurean Prince playing heavy minutes, who's a nice player. They brought in Gary Trent, who I thought was great for the minimum. I think that's what he got, which is crazy. But the team, Brook Lopez is getting older. The team just isn't good. You can't trust their top guys. Chris Middleton, like I said before, he is just never on the court. So I just think that they had a great run. They won a championship, and I think the Giannis era is just gonna come to a close. Honestly,
yeah. I mean, I think the problem is that when you have a guy like Giannis, right? He as just a player on the court, no problem. But when you're a player of his caliber and you bring a championship to that city, and he's got so much pull in the organization, and not every player, one thing that a lot of people credit LeBron for is off the court is his ability to make moves, and lay GM. So
I think he's actually such a bad GM.
You could argue that
LeBron would have another ring if he wasn't the GM.
He makes some bad moves, but he's also made moves that from a technicality standpoint, has helped him, just acquiring some role players. He kind of assembled that squad in Cleveland, bringing in Kevin Love, who was a great player for them. Yeah. He brought in, some good role players into Miami that ultimately helped him, like Ray Allen and, some of the recruiting. But Giannis, isn't, necessarily maybe as good at that. And I think him, manufacturing a coaching change and maybe requesting Damian Lillard as opposed to just sticking with his guy Drew. I could be wrong on that. Maybe maybe he was blindsided by the Dame trade, but part of me also kind of remembers Giannis, floating the idea of wanting to play with Dame.
I doubt he was blindsided by it. Yeah. I don't know, but I do.
Yeah, because it's Drew Holiday. I mean, there really wasn't much of a reason to get rid of him. I mean, they won a championship. They still had, Middleton on the roster. They still have Middleton. So they have 3 guys. And, Drew Holiday's defense it's a night and day difference from what Dame gives you. I mean, Drew Holiday, not just for his position, but for any position, is one of the best, on-ball defenders in the NBA. And he can get buckets when needed, so...
Yeah.
And he's a winner. So, I mean, credit to Boston for realizing that and getting him. I mean, he's such an X factor for them. But, yeah, I mean, Milwaukee, they got to figure it out with Giannis. It's like they got to make sure, they don't lose him because, I mean, he is a once-in-a-generation player. You can't really let a guy like that walk. So they got to find a way to potentially repair any, dysfunction that's going on right now.
They can try. I actually think if I was to guess, I would say Dame gets traded before Giannis because I think they'll try their hardest to hold out hope with Giannis and be like, look, like give us a chance to try and make a move that can change it, turn this thing around. Like it just didn't work with you and Dame. So I think there's a chance that, Dame gets moved. They try and turn Dame into, 2 solid players or something like that, or a younger player, or get a lot of picks, and maybe they just decide to rebuild. I don't know. Maybe
I mean,
there's a chance they just trade both of them, get a crap load of picks and young talent, and they're just like, you know what? We had our great run. It's time to rebuild. We wish you guys the best, but it's just not going to work out right now.
Yeah, I mean, if you learned one thing recently in the NBA, like these, the whole big 2s and big 3s, like just thinking you can slap any 2 or 3 players together and just assume it's going to work because of name value and, on paper talent. It doesn't really work like that anymore. There's too much talent in the NBA these days. It seems like almost every team in the league has one like either established star or up and coming star. There's almost someone on every team that like is a really good player.
Yeah.
If not multiple. So you can't just throw a couple players together, in this case Dame and Giannis, and just assume they're going to take over the NBA because Dame is one of the best offensive guards and Giannis is one of the best posts. It just doesn't work. It's not like a Kobe and Shaq thing. You put those 2 together, automatic championships. Magic and Kareem, automatic championships. Even the Miami Heat, LeBron, Wade, and Bosh, they didn't win it first year, but they figured it out and they won a couple championships from it. So you need the depth in today's league. You really need the depth, and the Bucks don't have that right now. So, and you look at the teams that do. Boston has depth. The Cavs have depth. The top teams in that conference have depth. So, even the Knicks have a decent amount of depth. So
they will when they get their guys back, and I think they'll probably make a move at the deadline. But
yeah, they definitely have to make a move.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of Dame and the Bucks, you want to do a Dame Would You Rather? Get that done with?
Sure, let's do it.
Cool. So, Would You Rather Damian Lillard edition. First up, Jalen Brunson.
I gotta go Brunson.
It's obviously Brunson.
Yeah.
It's just a gimme.
It's Brunson. Yeah.
Yeah. Next up, Dame Lillard or Ja Morant.
I'm gonna go Morant.
And this just to preface, like this is for this season. Like it's not obviously you take Ja, he's younger, like long term. This is just for this season. I would take Ja as well.
Yeah,
but,
I would take Ja. I think he does give you more versatility on defense. His athleticism, his vertical style of play allows him to block shots and contest shots, and he's just a quicker, better athlete than Dame overall at this point. So it's like that extra aspect of Ja. I got to take Ja.
Yeah, for sure. Next up, Dame Lillard or Jamal Murray. A year ago, I would have said Jamal Murray because I thought he was just, after that finals run, he was just playing at such a high level in the playoffs, and he's always been that playoff performer, but he's looked bad for a while now. He looked bad in the playoffs. He looked bad in the Olympics. He's looked again. So I'm going to go Dame.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Dame too because, like you said, a lot of Murray's struggles are kind of clouded by how great Jokic is, and people don't realize that Murray will have a terrible game and then he'll hit a big shot down the stretch, and everyone wants to just jump on the Murray bandwagon. Like, granted, listen, the guy's hit some big shots.
He's clutch. There's no doubt about that.
He's a cold-blooded killer. I mean, he hit some crazy shots against the Lakers, last season. Just absolutely breaking their hearts.
And he was bad in the playoffs, but he hit those. He just dominates. He owns the Lakers. That's for sure.
He does. It's terrifying when he brings the ball up against the Lakers in crunch time. So, I mean, he's good in that aspect. But who else is good in that aspect? Dame Lillard,
Exactly.
and he's been Dame time has been probably the one of the clutchest guards and players for that matter in the last decade. So I mean, that equals out. And then, Dame as an offensive player is overall better than Murray.
Yeah.
I would give it a Dame. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Let's see. Next up, we got Dame Lillard or Kyrie Irving.
I'm going to go Kyrie. I feel like he's figured himself out. I feel like him in Dallas has been pretty solid so far. I mean, look, they made it to the finals last year. I think him and Luka, are a good duo. They know how to share the ball. Obviously it's Luka's team, but Kyrie complements him well as just that extra guard who can play make when Luka's on the bench, and even when they're on the court together, Kyrie's a great spot up shooter. So I'm gonna take Kyrie. I think he's just accomplished more than Dame in his career, and I trust Kyrie to just make more plays than Dame.
Yeah, I would take Kyrie as well. I think that he's just better right now. Like, I think he's shooting 54% from three this year. Obviously, like we've been talking about, we're not even 10 games into the season.
Yeah, the number will go down, but Kyrie...
He's been really good. He was really good last year. He's playing really well this year, and, he's staying on the court. And when Kyrie's on the court, there's no questions about how good he is. It's just, will he stay on the court? And he's done that. Next up, Dame Lillard or Drew Holiday, the man he was traded for.
So, this is an interesting one because, like, if I'm a Bucks fan answering this question, I would say Drew Holiday. I still think there's aspects to both of them that the other doesn't do. Dame is certainly a better offensive player. Drew Holiday is certainly a better defensive player. I think for what the Bucks need more right now, they would rather have Drew Holiday. From just a general fan perspective, they might say Dame, but this is tough.
I think for what teams are looking to do now, obviously like Dame is not going to be the best player on a championship team. I think Drew's just a better fit for most teams. Like if I'm honestly, I would give it to Drew right now. Like it's hard to say that because Dame has just been so good, and he's still. I think he had a 10 3-pointer game the other night. Like he's still that guy, but what Drew does is like he benefits more basketball teams.
You could plug him into more lineups.
If they're playing one-on-one, I don't know, maybe Dame wins, but Dame can't stop Drew, and Drew can stop Dame. So it's probably Drew at this point, regardless of how you slice it.
That's a fair point. Yeah, I mean, defensively at the end of the day, like you said, he can play for anybody, and he'll crack a starting lineup. So yeah, it's a fair point.
And we got 1 minute left, so I got two more. So Dame Lillard or Tyrese Halliburton.
I'm going Dame. Hallie is just like...
Halliburton's not... He's just Halliburton.
Yeah, it's like...
He's a good player. He's not a great player.
Yeah, it's like... We got to pump the brakes.
He's a really good player, but he's not an elite player.
No.
And then last up, Dame Lillard or Trae Young.
Oof. Yeah, we're not taking age into account. It's probably a toss-up, but like... I'm gonna go Ice Trae because I just feel like he's a better facilitator than Dame. I feel like Trae Young could probably work better with more posts. He doesn't necessarily need to play as much ISO ball. Like Dame, is more like an ISO ball kind of player. I feel like Trae Young, even though he can score a lot and shoot a lot, he kind of has that pass first mentality, whereas Dame doesn't necessarily have that. So I feel like Trae Young could benefit more posts, as a guard post duo more than Dame could complement.
I think I would just take Trae.
Yeah.
We're still rolling, whatever. I mean, let's just wrap things up. I mean, Zion hurt out indefinitely. I don't know about Zion, bro. I feel bad, but I also don't because he looks like he's out of shape again.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know what it is with this guy. It's like, high school, he was the greatest show in sports. College, he was arguably the greatest show in sports, and then he gets to the NBA, and it's like before he can even put on a show, this guy's just injured, in a variety of different ways, and this time it's a hamstring, and those can be really tricky, especially a guy with that kind of explosive play style and vertical play style. I mean, he needs his hamstrings full go to really be Zion Williamson.
Yeah,
he's not really a finesse guy; he's power and athleticism. So. That's a tricky one for him. This is an injury I could see lingering all season for him, honestly. And the Pelicans probably have to start questioning, is this our franchise guy? I mean, I'm sure he's a great guy, for the locker room and everything, and great teammate, but he's not available. And the most valuable asset a player can have in sports is their availability, and this guy is just not available. So
it's bad. Yeah, I mean, It's just like they just kind of have a bunch of guys who are just like on the Pelicans. They went and got DeJounte Murray, who is like, he's good. They have Brandon Ingram, who's like, he's good. And then they have Zion, who's supposed to be like, he, when healthy, is
McCollum
a special player. And CJ, who's another, he's good. But it's like they need him. With him, they're a great team. Without him, they're just another like mediocre, boring team.
Yeah, I mean, they got a bunch of guys, like you said, a bunch of like guys. I mean, like I said, it's not that they're bad players, but it almost feels like, especially like the DeJounte Murray trade, good player. Some people might say great player, but it feels like they just are acquiring him because he's talented, not because he actually fits what they need.
Exactly.
It's like they're just acquiring talent just to say they did it. And not necessarily maybe acquiring the right pieces and personnel to really take them to that next level. But at the end of the day, it doesn't help them one bit. It doesn't matter who they have if their best guy, Zion, when he's healthy, is their best guy. I mean, Ingram's a bucket, CJ is a bucket, but Zion is, the unique player that franchise hasn't had. Since Anthony Davis.
Yeah.
So,
and now they're 3-7 and Zion's out indefinitely. So their season's pretty much over.
Yeah, I mean, it's not looking good for them. Like I said, those hamstring injuries, man, in any sport, especially, like I said, a player like Zion, who he relies on, that power and athleticism. I don't see this going away, and it could just potentially be another lost season for Zion and the Pelicans. I don't know.
Yeah. And then to wrap things up, I mean, I think we should talk Sixers. Another guy, Maxey, hurt. Joel Embiid's not playing back-to-back. He's shoving reporters in the locker room. Like, they're 1-7. Paul George is like hyperextended his knee already. Like, I don't think this Joel Embiid thing is ever going to work in Philadelphia.
Yeah.
I don't think it's on coaching. I think Nick Nurse is a good coach. I like some of the pieces they had. I thought they gave the Knicks a really good fight, and I thought they did a good job for what they had in the offseason, but it's already like unraveling, and like, obviously, the season is far from over, but to start off 1-7, you're just putting yourself in a hole, especially if you have your best player is already out publicly saying he's not playing back-to-backs, and now your actual second best player who consistently plays is out indefinitely as well. With no Maxey and no Embiid playing back-to-backs, I don't see how this team makes the playoffs.
No, yeah, because it's like
after a 1-7 start, like
that is a big hole to climb, especially in a improving Eastern Conference each year. I mean, the Knicks are on the rise, the Celtics are a juggernaut, the Cavs look really good again. I'm sure Miami's going to be a pest at, when it's all said and done. They're going to be a good team. The Pacers are still good. So there's teams out there that the Sixers are going to have to compete with, and like you said, if their best player is not playing back-to-backs, is already injury prone to begin with. So, unfortunately, it's, with him, it's like you can only expect an injury is going to happen one way or another. Now, Maxey, I mean, that's an unfortunate one because I'm a Maxey fan.
He's awesome.
He's electric. I mean, I can't even hate on the guy. I mean, obviously, being a Knicks fan, watching that series in the playoffs last year, every Knicks fan in the world hates Embiid, but I think everyone does respect Maxey, especially in Knicks land. It's like, how could you not? I mean, the guy's electric. He's a baller. He's fearless. He hits big time shots. But I mean, again, if he's not on the court, the Sixers, their depth is looking real rough. So
yeah, I mean, the only thing you could hate about Maxey is playing against him. Like he's one of the best players in the league. He just continued to get better, and it's a huge blow for them. And it's just been a rough start to their season. Embiid was like, I want to make sure I'm ready for the playoffs. Well, now Maxey, your second best player, who potentially is better than you half the time, is out indefinitely. You're not playing back-to-backs, and Paul George is coming back from a knee bruise. So it's just not looking good at all for them. And the thing is with the East is like, the Knicks are gonna figure it out for sure. Cavs will fall back. They're 10-0. Celtics are incredible. So there's like three really good teams, but then you have the Pacers, you have the Magic, you have the Heat, you have the Bucks, who knows? But it's like the Bucks and the Sixers are 14-15, and they're the worst two teams in the Eastern Conference right now. The Nets are even 4-5, and the Hornets too. Wow.
Yeah, look at the Hornets. I mean, LaMelo's been hooping, so
they can sneak in. Obviously, they only have to be a top 10 seed. But yeah, it's not looking good.
No, I mean, like, and the whole thing with the Sixers is that trust the process. I don't know how much longer they can trust the process. If the outcomes keep getting more and more disappointing because, you bring in a guy like Paul George, again, similar to my thoughts on the Pelicans just bringing in talent just to do it, not necessarily what the team needs. Bringing in Paul George to me just felt like a desperation move. It's like we're just going to bring in a guy.
It was the only move they could make.
Exactly. It was the only move they could make, and they just did it because they felt like they had to, and maybe they did have to, but they're in a tough spot because now technically all three of these guys are injured, either injury prone or now Maxi's first, real injury in the NBA. Paul George is a great player, but playoffs, this guy breaks down. Playoff P. He either disappoints you on the court or sometimes he's not even there. He'll break down, and Embiid, we know, his struggles to stay on the court. So
the Sixers pretty much have to turn it around relatively quickly, or else they're going to dig themselves into a hole. They're
going to just be fighting for the play-in tournament at this point. If they want any hope of being a top seed and getting potentially some home court advantage in the playoffs, it's not looking good for them. They got to turn it around ASAP.
Yeah, and these are their next upcoming games. They got the Hornets tomorrow. They have the Knicks, Cavs, Magic, Heat, Grizzlies, Nets, Clippers, Rockets, Pistons, Hornets, Magic, Bulls, Hornets, Cavs. That takes them into late December. They don't have the easiest path either. And
no.
I don't know. So we'll see with them. But, yeah, I think that's all I got.
Yeah.
But yeah, good episode. Cool. Let's see. What did we go for? We went for an hour and 8 minutes.
Yeah,
nice.
It's good.
Cool. Thank you for coming on, Avery.
Yes, sir. Good time.